So welcome to mySQL Workbench workshop. For this workshop, there are certain prerequisites which I think that you've done already, but let me reiterate. You should install mySQL Workbench on your computers, as well as MAMP, which is MAMP. It's something which we'll be using for generating a local server. And then the most important is a Sakila database. This database is the one which we'll be working on so that we get some hands-on SQL as well. And for this workshop, I'll be referring to SQL Workbench practice PDF, which has been posted on Canvas already. So let's get started. This is the PDF that you've all been it's accessible to all of you. So I'll go through the steps which are mentioned in here and maybe some extras. So let's do it. So the first thing is that we'll be using mySQL Workbench. So basically, it will be used for creating and managing connections to database servers. This is a platform that you'll be using for creating databases as well as querying them. So it's mySQL Workbench. So once you've installed it on your computer, you will be able to access it by searching it, and you can see here that we get something called mySQL Workbench. We can open it up. So this is the home page for mySQL Workbench. There are 3 panes over here. The first pane is for SQL Developer. The second is for data modeling. That is, you will be creating ER diagrams, and ER modeling is something which we'll be able to do through this pane. And this is a migration wizard. This is something that we won't be using for this workshop, but yeah, it might be useful for you in future to know it. So yeah, we'll be working mostly on the SQL Developer and the data modeling part. So the first step for us to go about mySQL Workbench is to create a connection. So in order to create a connection, it's very important that you have something called MAMP in your computers. So basically, it is used for creating a local server connection, which will be helpful for you to connect to mySQL server. So this is the MAMP page. So I have installed it in my computer, so I can just access it like this. So basically, it gives you a localhost URL using which you can connect to a server. So for me, the server is already running, but let me show you how it is going to look for you. It's going to come up something like this. So for you to generate the local address URL, you have to start the server. So you can just click this button, or you can start it from here. And the server has started. So according to the PDF, it tells us that a new window is going to pop up, like a new browser is going to pop up, which will give us the localhost address. Let me see this. Yeah. So after you start it, you'll be directed to a web page. But in our case, like I'm not being directed to it. So a good workaround for this is open web page option, and it'll take me to the web page itself. So here you can see that I'm getting the information of my server connection for mySQL server, the host name, the port number, the username, and the password. So I'll be using these credentials for making a connection for my mySQL database. So I'll go to Workbench, and I'll select this option, that is adding a mySQL connection, and it'll give me a window like this. So you can name the connection as per your choice. I'm giving it Priyanshi connection. The port number is 3306, which is same as what I got in this window. And the username and password is root for me. So you have an option over here to change the username and password as well, but I'm going to keep it the same. That's not an issue. So before making the connection and hitting OK, it's always better to test the connection first. So you can just test the connection, give the password, which is root for me, and I can see that the connection is successfully made. So it means that the connection credentials are correct. So I'll hit OK. And now I can see that I have an additional connection over here, which is the name that we gave it. So to access the SQL developer, I'll just click this connection twice, double click it, and it'll show me something like this. This is something which you must be seeing for the first time when you access this SQL developer window. So to give you a overall view of what is it. So this is the query editor, this page, the query section. This is the page wherein you'll be writing your scripts and you'll be creating the SQL queries. The next important window section is this, which is action output. Basically, it gives you this acts like a historical table wherein you'll be able to see that what all queries have you executed as of now, and you'll be able to see if the query was successful or failed. So basically, it's a log table for you. Whenever you will create or execute a specific query, you will get an output window over here, wherein you will be able to get the results of that specific query that you've executed. Other important things is that this is navigation bar, wherein there are different options which might be useful for you in future. We won't be going through them as of now, but yeah, for your information. And then there is a schema tab wherein you get the list of all schemas which you have in this database connection. So let's go through the demo the page once again. So in order to use this SQL Developer pane, it's important that you first download the database that is there in this link, which is Sakila for us. Basically, you'll get a zip file when you hit this URL, and you have to extract it in some particular location so that you can access it through the SQL Developer. So what we can do is that now, since we want to add this specific database to our systems, these are the two options that we have. First is adding a new query window. You can just click it and you'll get another new page for query editing. And another option we have is that we can import a query that you might be having in your local systems. So for me, I have this location wherein I have saved my Sakila database. And there are two files pertaining to the database. One is schema and another is data. So what happens is that whenever we are creating a database, it's important that we first must have a database and then all the tables inside it. So first step for us is to create the database and create the tables for a specific database. That is something which is included in schema. So let's just import it and see what is in there. So if you see, this specific script has the queries for creating a schema as well as creating different tables inside it, like create table actor, create table address, create table category. So basically what this script comprises of is of multiple SQL queries that you want to execute in order to create a database or a schema in our case. So what we are going to do is that we're going to execute this script. So in order to execute this whole script so that all the queries which are listed inside it gets executed, we'll go to query and then execute all selections. Now what happens is you can see here in the action output that all the queries that you just hit run on have actually been executed. So you can see that all the queries like create schema, Sakila, create table actor, address, they have all been executed successfully because we can see a green tick mark over here. So now we have a schema named Sakila and all the tables inside it. So just to check if the schema has been created or not, we can just go to the schema pane and refresh. Now we see that we have this another folder named Sakila, which is basically the schema which we have. And we have different tables inside it. Different tables, views, stored procedures, functions which are there in the script. So we can just have a look at it. We can see that inside the table folder, we have different tables like actor, address, category, city, etc. If I select actor, I'll be able to see more information regarding it, like the columns. What are all the columns inside actor? It is actor ID, first name, last name. What are all the indexes? Maybe it has a primary index, and all the information pertaining to a specific table we'll be able to view in here. So the next step for us is now, since we have created the schema and created a table, now we want to insert data inside these tables. So in order to do that, what we'll do is that we'll go again to the import option. And in this case, we'll import Sakila data. So let's see what is there in this script. When we'll see, we'll find that it basically has different records that it is inserting into each and every table, like the actor name, the last name, ID, and all the other different tables also are having some specific data which are being inserted through this specific script. So what we did earlier, we're going to repeat it again. We're going to hit query and execute all selection. Now we can see that in the action output that all these queries are being executed. So insert into insert into table, into store, into actor, all of that has been executed now. So in order to check if the queries has been executed and if you have data or not, you can just simply go to the query pane and select count star from actor. So you'll know if this specific table actor has records or not. So you can just hit query and execute current statement. And we see that we have about 200 records inside this table. And like I said before, there is this result pane which comes in here. Every time you query something, you'll be able to get a result in this section. Another thing that I'd like to tell you is, let's say that I change the name of the table and say select count star on actor. Execute this thing. You can see in here in the action output that I got an error. We can see a red cross in here. And if you see the message, the error message, it'll say that the table actor does not exist, which is actually the case with us. We don't have any table like ACTR in our database. So basically, this pane is very important for us to have a look at and see what all errors do we have in the query that we're executing. It'll simply prompt us that what errors do we have. And even when we're inserting something or querying something, it'll tell us that how many rows were returned through the query. So in order to monitor the queries that you are executing, it's very important that you have a look at the action output pane. So, okay. Now that we've done this, another thing that I'd like to point out is how can we uh, uh, see or analyze a specific table? So for example, in this case, actor, there is this option which is basically information. And when I click it, I'll be able to get all the information pertaining to this specific table. Like I can see that this specific table has 4 columns. It has about 200 rows. That is about the same which we got in our query. And then there is other summary informations which might be useful for you. So basically this gives you an overview of a specific table. If you go on other tabs, you'll be able to see more information like the column names, the data types of the columns, and if they are nullable or not, and other things like foreign keys, indexes, triggers, things like that. So it is very easy with this to just analyze a specific table and see what all attributes does it have. Other than that, there is this option of settings over here, using which you will be able to see if your columns have some specific constraints or not. So basically, when you hover over these labels, you'll see that this is for primary key, this is for not null, this is for binary column. So if a specific actor ID is here and it shows that the primary key column is ticked, it means that the actor ID is the primary key of the table. It means that it is going to uniquely identify your records in the table. And not only that, there are other constraints as well, like not null. Basically, not null is that if any field of a column is null and you're trying to insert that record, it won't insert because the specific column is not accepting null values. And there are certain other constraints also about which you'll get information through this specific view. So it's very, I'd suggest that you take your time for this week and just explore this a bit so that you'll get a good intuition of this tool, and it'll make your exercises in the coming weeks much more easier for you. So this was the SQL developer part. The other thing that we will be working on is creating an ER diagram, that is an entity relationship model. So in order to do that, we'll have to change. So what I did, sorry, I just skipped it. I just went to the home button, clicked it, and now I can see the home page, which we saw on the very first glance of MySQL Workbench. So here we can go to the data modeling section. And in order to add the model, we just click add. Now, to give you a background, what we want is that since we have Sakila database in our system, we want to create an ER diagram or an ER model, which could give us a whole view of the database so that we'll be able to know how different tables are related to one another. So you go to database and you go to option reverse engineer. Here, when this pane comes up, you can just select the connection that you're in and hit next. Here you'll have to give the password, which is root for me, as we saw earlier, and just hit next. Here you'll be able to see the list of all the schemas that you have pertaining to your connection. So for me, I just have Sakila as my schema, but you can have multiple list of schemas over here. So since we want to make an ER diagram for Sakila, we'll select it and hit next. Go on next and execute. Next and finish. So now you can see that we got this ER diagram in here. So in order to adjust the view, you can just look here, minimize the zoom a bit so that you can fit it a bit and adjust it. So now you can see that we are able to see the ER diagram or the ER model which is pertaining to our schema. We have all the tables that we have created in here, like address, actor, category, payments, etc. And we're able to see the relationship that they have with each and every table. Since we're talking about relational databases, it's important that we also understand the relationship of tables as well. As we have studied in this week, I guess, you have read about relationship, like the cardinality relationship of one to many. So we can see here that actor is related to address in a one to many relationship. That is, one actor can have multiple addresses. And like all these other things are pertaining to pertaining to the concepts that we have in ER diagram that we'll be studying. So what we can do is, so in the coming weeks exercises, we'll be able, like we'll need to download, import and export ER diagrams for the assignments. So in order to do that, so basically in this pane, you can make any kind of change that you want to your ER diagram. So for example, if you want to add a note in here or add something in here, you can just add. Um, yeah, just click it and click it to the place that you want to add the text to on, and you can add something in here. This is the text label, whatever the label you might want to give it, and this is the content that you want to add. And you can see that it's automatically being inserted in this box, and in order to make any changes to the diagram, and in order to maybe uh, place it somewhere that you want to, you can just drag it and drop it. And if you see in here, you have multiple options in here. Like you can add a new table if you want a box for a new table. You can give the details in here, and a specific box for that table will appear in here. And if you want to make new relationships, you have options in here to just drag and drop. So it's basically like Pane. It's just that you'll have to work on the concepts of ER diagram to make the whole model. So this is the way that you can make some changes in here. Um, Now, whenever you are done with the changes that you're working on, you can just go to File, Export, and export the model that you're working on. You can export it as a PDF, as a PNG, and that is up to the ask that you have in the assignment. So let's say this is data model 2. Save. Now I can go to the location where I've saved my model. This is the model that I've saved. Click it, and I'm able to see the diagram that I created along with the changes that I've made. So that is how you deal with ER models in here. So this is pretty much it on the steps for the demo.